All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's try this one more time. We're trying to make our assembly of your ink pen, right? So, in order to do this, you need to first create your sub-assembly of just the ink well with the tip and the cylinder and that little cap right there. So, to do that, you need to go online and get your parts, download them, highlight, right click, click download, and it will populate into your downloads folder. You then need to open those or extract those from your downloads folder into a folder, a project folder that you have created. It should populate with all of your files. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and assume that you guys have done all that stuff, and I'm going to start a new assembly. So coming to my home screen, I'm going to click new, and then I'm going to click standard.iam. That is an inventor assembly model. Now, it's always good practice to go ahead and start out by saving your file and making sure that it's being saved in the right location. So that looks like it's the right location. I'm going to go ahead and call this Inkwell Assembly JG5 because we've been having a lot of computer problems tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and place the first part. Now, what you notice is that you get a little preview of the file name. I want to first place my cylinder. That's my base, my middle part that everything is connected to. I'm going to set that down. I'm going to rotate that around the Z axis so that way it's pointed in that horizontal direction that makes more sense to me. If it makes more sense to you to go a different way, then go right ahead. For every time you click the left button with the left click, you will drop another instance of this thing. Only drop in there what you actually need and what you're actually about to constrain. Okay? So, another thing that I'm going to tell you to do right now, right click on this thing and make sure that it's grounded because you don't want it to be able to move around. Every assembly should have one grounded item. Now we're going to go ahead and place. And the first thing I'm going to place is the inkwell tip. Open that up and you see how the inkwell tip is pointed down? I don't want it to point down. I'm going to rotate it around the Z-axis so that way it's pointed in the right direction first. I click with the left click one time, and then I'm going to hit escape in order to not have any more of those. I'm just going to use a simple rigid joint because that point shouldn't move around from that point. That looks good to me, so I'm going to click apply. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to place this other part, which is that. Click open. And I'm going to drop it right there. Now, you see how there's a work plane here? If you don't have a work plane symmetrically through this part, I would suggest you come up here. First off, did you see how I double clicked it and now my ribbon is different? So this view right here, my toolbar is different. I'm in the assembly view. If I double click a part, you see how these gray out, how this section grays out in my browser. It activates the stuff that made this part. That means that I'm now adapting my part view. You want to click and make a mid-plane between two planes to make sure that you have a nice mid-plane there on that part. Okay, go ahead and do that if you need to. I am going to go ahead and just make a rigid joint here again because you remember how we stuck the square peg into the round hole? We're going to do that in Inventor too because Inventor will allow that. There we go. Except, gosh, I remember actually shoving the cylinder on there. So let's go ahead and make it that way. I'm going to start out just toying with some numbers. Okay, so that went the wrong direction. So I want it to be a negative number. And that's not far enough. Let's try 1.5. 1.8. Well, it looks good. I'm going to apply that. Click cancel. All right, so now I have my inkwell assembly right there. I'm going to go ahead and click save again because I already saved it and give it a file name. Now I'm going to go ahead and click the home screen again, and I'm going to go ahead and say new standard.iam. Double click it to open a new inventor assembly model. Now, this one, we should go ahead and save it right off the bat and just call it, first off, making sure it's saving in the right spot. We should call this thing test. And you can call it full pin, shuttle pin. Let's just call it shuttle pin. And underscore JG. All right. So now it'll populate there. And now we want to place the first part. Place the most basic, largest part. I'm going to say the barrel or the main body of it. There we go. We're going to go with that one. All right. Now again, I want to rotate this around so it's laying horizontally on the page. And also again, you see how I have these work planes on here? If you don't have these work planes, you see these work planes? They are actually symmetrical to the holes. Okay. So I created these work planes, just double clicking the part to get into the part view. I used this mid-plane between two planes tool again, and I selected that as well as that. Okay. And so that popped up with the mid planes that I needed. And you can adjust the sizes of them. You can turn the visibility off and on, etc., etc. But what I'm going to do right now is I'm first going to go ahead and right click this thing and ground it now. Okay. Click the home button. Also, I'm going to go ahead and take my work planes and I'm going to shut some of them off. I'm going to turn the visibility off on that. Okay. So now I want to go ahead and I want to place my most recent inkwell. There we go. Now, I just want to make sure that the little dot that's up there on the top of it is going to be facing up because I'm just going to place it into this well that's top dead center here. I'm going to place a single one because I want to place it as I'm constraining it. It's easier to find them and to keep them straight if you do that. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a mate constraint between this plane and this work plane. Click apply, click cancel. And so what that does is it allows me to move this thing anywhere as long as it is in line with those two planes. Okay? Now, the second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a planar joint. So right here, we're going to click planar and we are going to select that top surface and gotta get it to light up the correct spot. Let's say that one. All right. Now it may be twirling around in its preview right now, but with the constraint that we've already got in there, it will only allow it to go like that. Okay. And in fact, I clicked the wrong geometry on there, so I'm going to have to break that constraint. So I'm going to click the subassembly and find that planar constraint. I'm going to edit and I'm going to delete that. Okay. And so now I'm going to try and make that planar constraint again, or that planar joint. Again, top surface. But I need it to be that bottom. It's not wanting to give me that bottom part. Here, let's try that. Edit, Let's put a gap there. A gap, arrows pointing up, so let's try negative 0.25. That's way too far. 0.05. I'm just going to play with the number until it's all right. Okay, that looks good to me. All right, now here's the deal. We are not going to be able to get these perfect because we did not take all the time to create all of the geometry inside these things. Okay, by having the little bushing up here, it's going to really help you out just by making it a slider constraint or a cylindrical constraint inside that, and then having the cylindrical constraint in there. But this was the most difficult part, is just lining this part up with the central axis of the hole and lining the bottom of the face up with the bottom of the hole itself. So hopefully this video helped you out. And if you have any questions, let me know.